All right. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Ballin and Brawlin podcast. Here with Connor Hebbeler, I make my glorious, long-awaited return to the podcasting studio to talk UFC 300 with my trusty co-host, the man who needs no introduction, but we'll give him one anyway, because when you're the 2022 leader in NFL special team snaps, they got a name for you. They don't just call you the 2022 leader in NFL special team snaps. They call you Justin Strnad. Justin, welcome aboard.
What's up, Hebs? Glad to be here. Ballin and Brawlin podcast, man. Looking forward to doing this with you. Looking forward to the future and breaking down what we love, MMA fights. We love the UFC. We've been in it for a little while now, and we love talking about it. And no better way to open up our podcast debut than with the big old UFC 300, arguably the biggest combat sporting event in combat sports history, and stat card from top to bottom, and really looking forward to breaking down this main card with you, man. What's your opening thoughts on the card?
Yeah, so we were talking a little bit about it earlier. I think Dana maybe shot himself in the foot a little bit talking about this main event. I think everyone was kind of expecting the unexpected, whether that be a McGregor return or just one of these massive fights that maybe Pereira and Hill as a headliner felt like a letdown to some people. I certainly didn't see it that way, but I guess that's understandable with what he was talking about. You know, Izzy and Dracus du Plessis come out and say they were offered the title fight. Dana himself said Leon Edwards had 3 different opponents offered to him, so they were really trying to make that fight. John Jones said he was offered to fight. So all this was leading up to the announcement. I almost thought it was a joke. They were putting all that out, kind of like playing with the audience, and then they were going to drop this massive card because it was a disaster right before they announced it. All these guys coming out saying I was offered the UFC 300 headline spot. And then all of a sudden, right after the Volk Ilya fight, they just kind of dropped that headliner. But the card as a whole, I mean, on paper, easily the best prelims of all time, best opener to a prelims of all time. Could not be more excited for this card, and I think it's going to be an unbelievable night of fights.
Yeah, when it was first announced, like the majority of fans, I was expecting a big name like John Jones, McGregor, someone like that to headline this one. I mean, it's a very important night for the UFC. I think it's a historic night for them and something they wanted to be. Obviously, it's going to be a huge night regardless. I mean, they've built this thing up so big to where I think just about anybody could headline, and they're going to have a great night. But you were expecting that huge name, and we ended up getting Pereira versus Hill, which obviously is a great fight. But it just shows you how deep the sport is and how evolving it is that they're still able to produce, a card like this. I mean, without it's arguably the best card of all time, but it doesn't have the names of the John Jones, the biggest names in the sports history, really aren't on here. So it just shows you the ever evolving sport that is the UFC and MMA, and the continued growth of some of these superstars. But to get right into it, opening up the night with a guy who could be a superstar here in the future. That's yet to be seen because he's fought nothing but guys off the street. But we got Bo Nickel not headlining, but opening up the biggest pay-per-view in the sports history, taking on Cody Brundage, a guy who's quite the journeyman, I'll say, with all due respect. How do you see this one going, Hebs?
Yeah, so to start things off, I'm truthfully not too happy about Bo Nickel getting a spot on the main card. I know that's what the general consensus seems to be, but on a card with Yuri Prohaska versus Alexander Rakic, you have Calvin Kattar versus Aljo, the first fight of the night, 2 former champions, Davison Figueiredo versus Cody Garbrandt. I really don't see how this fight gets on the main card. I know what Dana's doing. They're trying to push this guy. Maybe he is legit, as you mentioned, kind of has only fought in bums to this point. So But I don't understand. He doesn't have the following today. I understand what they're trying to do, put more eyes on him. They think he could be a potential superstar, but I don't see him there yet. Having said that, there's no way he's losing this fight. I think the biggest question is whether or not he's going to knock him out or submit him. I see a submission. He's fallen in love with his hands. This last fight, he had a great great hook that knocked him out within like about 30 seconds. But I see him getting it done on the ground, just ragdolling this Brundage character. I keep looking to make sure I don't butcher the name. The guy was on a 3-fight losing streak, then won one by DQ, and he's coming off a decision victory against all guys I have not heard of, unfortunately. So obviously, this is the biggest favorite of the night. So no surprise. Who you are we seeing the upset being pulled here, Justin?
Yeah, I mean, look here. Let's not beat around the bush. We're looking at arguably. I think this might be the biggest favorite in UFC history. I'm seeing minus 2,500 here on the ESPN app, folks. That's just stating that you have to wager $2,500 to win $100 that Bo Nickel wins this fight. Basically, Vegas is telling you there's no chance Bo Nickel doesn't win this bout. I think it's a handpicked night opponent for Bo in this one. I think the UFC obviously wants him to come out here and get a nice quick finish, stay clean, stay fresh, and on to the next. Hopefully they stick him in there with somebody that you and I wouldn't have a chance against in the next one. But leading into the first true high level fight of the night, we got the former lightweight champion, the fan favorite Charles "Do Bronx" Oliveira, taking on the young phenom, the guy that many think could give Islam a little run for his money, and Arman Tsarukyan. Hebs, how do you see this one playing out, man?
Been very torn. Another one that, as we've spoken these last few weeks, I've been back and forth on. Charles Oliveira, one of the best lightweights ever, as memorable and exciting as a championship run as we've seen in recent memory. His era, although only lasted a couple years, was just so fun to watch. All these exciting finishes. Underdog in most of those fights. I think maybe all of he was a favorite over Gaethje for sure. But such an exciting and memorable run. And we're talking about stars on this 300, or who was going to headline this card. How many bigger stars in the UFC currently are there than Charles "Do Bronx" Oliveira? And as we mentioned, not even that he's a big guy on the mic. He does all his talking with his fists. A little bit of "Hello, Canada." That was maybe the only thing he's ever said in English. But still, a guy with a massive fan base. I know everyone wants to see him win. Tsarukyan, the favorite in this one, although much less experience. A guy who's been on everyone's radar ever since taking Islam to decision on a couple week notice when he was 22 years of age. I feel like we've been waiting for him to kind of break out for a while. Maybe he did against Beneil Dariush, but now we get to see him against a true number one contender. Again, I'm torn. I'm back and forth on this one, but it's UFC 300. I think there'll be magic in the air, and I think Charles Oliveira will knock him out.
I love it. I love the prediction. Like you said, I mean, Charles is a fan favorite. We know that. I could see this fight going both ways. It's a very high level fight, honestly. But at the end of the day, like, Charles has got that finishing ability that, like, you know what I mean? He can finish the fight at any time, but he can also be controlled on the ground, I think, against elite wrestlers and guys with the grappling level to match his BJJ, but guys who can really wrestle, I think, give him fits. And I think we're going to see Arman do that. I think we're going to see Arman take him down in this one. It could be a little, I mean, you don't really see Charles in too boring of bouts these days, but this one could be a little bit less entertaining, or for the casual fans that just want to see knockouts. This might be something different, but I think we're going to see Arman grind out a decision win here, and which would be a big win for him, and a win that could get him a title shot. He already.
definitely has to be the number one contender fight, right? I know Gaethje, he kind of wanted a title shot. They've been talking
Uh,
about Dustin Poirier fighting
I
for the
mean,
title, which, probably not the most deserved, but just I don't know if anyone on this card, whether it be Gaethje or the winner of this fight, I'm not sure their timelines match up with Islam. I know he wants to fight in June, so that'd be a pretty quick turnaround. But this has to be for the number one contender, right? Charles was already booked for the rematch against Islam a couple months ago. Obviously, that fight fell through. Um, but the winner of this is getting the title shot, right? He'll fight Islam next.
I don't know. I mean, when you're Justin Gaethje, if he reels off a win here against Mr. Holloway, and you got your manager in Ali Abdelaziz, I think anything's possible. He's also a fan favorite. It'd be tough, I would say, to not give Gaethje a title shot if he wins here on Saturday night. Um, and I mean, we'll see. I mean, speaking of the highlight, the human highlight, the goat of Fight of the Nights, one of the biggest legends in the sport, um, one of my all-time favorite fighters, Justin Gaethje, takes on another. We talk about fan favorites. I don't know if it gets any bigger than Max Blessed Holloway in a huge fight. Max moving up to lightweight from featherweight, and this is we obviously know this has got Fight of the Night written all over it. How do you see this one going, Hebs?
Well, first of all, before we even get into that, did you see the custom shorts for both of these guys? What do we think of the custom shorts? I know Holloway's been talking about getting that the floor of the Hawaiians forever. Finally got it to him. I was a big fan of those. For Gaethje, not so much. They they kind of don't look great. I heard he didn't seem too excited about it. That he wanted maybe the going for more of a Rocky Balboa American flag, Apollo Creed type shorts. Instead, they were just black. There was like the American flag, but it was no red, white, and blue in sight. What'd you think of the shorts and the UFC doing that? Before we get into breaking down the fight.
Yeah, so I'm for the fighters being able to rep whatever they want on their shorts. Like the old days, that was a way for the fighters to make more income per bout with their sponsors and things like that. And I know that's been taken away with the whole Venom deals and whatnot. But um, I go back and forth on it. I'm gonna be honest. Like the Gaethje ones pretty much look like regular fight shorts. To be honest, they don't look anything crazy. Now the Max and the Alex Pereira ones, those are like, I know it's UFC 300. They're probably just doing it like for this special event, but I mean, shout out, tip the cap to the old Sugar Show because he changed the short game uh, in the UFC at least for now. So Dana's a guy usually doesn't change things like this, but you show respect to guys like Gaethje, Holloway, Pereira, legends of the sport. Now, with all due respect, we shouldn't have Brendan Allen headlining an Apex event rocking custom shorts. You know what I mean? I don't know if that really fits the bill,
Remember Brendan
but
Allen
as
catching
long as they don't
a
go too
random
far with
thread.
it, as long as they don't go too far with it, I think it's all good. But let's get into it, man. What do you think about this and the fight that I'm honestly this? I mean, and Hill. I mean, let's all the fights I'm looking forward to, but this fight, we all know this is arguably the people's main event. What's your take on it, Hevs? Who do you have in this one?
Max Holloway finally moving up to lightweight for the second time. We saw in person back in 2019, almost 5 years ago to the date, when he first moved up to lightweight to fight Dustin Poirier for the interim lightweight belt. And we saw that for a guy who was considered massive for that 45 weight class, one of the taller guys in the division, he looked very, very small against a big lightweight in Dustin Poirier, and he got hurt badly in that fight. Multiple times he got rocked. The stat of him never being dropped in a UFC fight, which is as bonkers of a stat as you'll ever see. I think he maybe has absorbed the most strikes in the history of the UFC, and he's never been dropped once. That doesn't even make any sense. But kind of an asterisk there. He got clipped multiple times against Poirier. The one in the second, I believe, where he falls up against the cage, probably should have counted as a drop either way. Um, but yeah, but he still didn't get finished. He still came on strong in the later rounds. Actually, took some of the later rounds off Dustin. So, will we see that chin finally get cracked? I don't know. If any, Gaethje is not the guy you want to fight in your move up to 55. A guy with heavy hands, guy in Max who hasn't even really put people away at 45. Doesn't have that one punch knockout power, and I think you're going to need that against a guy like Justin Gaethje. I'm back and forth. Let me hear your before I make my prediction. What do you how do you see this one going down?
Yeah, I mean, look, I love both these guys. You know
How
my
could you
thoughts
not?
on guys going up in weight, especially a guy like Max here. Like I think it's a challenge going up in weight, but two, a guy like Max, like we're seeing all these pictures on Twitter and everyone's like, "Oh, he's really put on size for this one." I mean, dude, the photos came out for like this short like dude, it's Max Holloway. Like we've seen him for a million years now. Like he's not a natural 155. Yeah, I know he might walk around, but dude, Justin Gaethje is a like legitimate 155. And look, there's 4 ounce gloves. Anything can happen, but I think this is a fight that's really kind of not tailor made for Gaethje, but there's a lot of things that favor Gaethje in this fight. Max is heavy on the lead foot. That Gaethje is the best leg kicker in the sport. I'd be shocked if Max isn't. His leg doesn't look like Gaethje's shorts the night after the fight. I think Gaethje eats up the leg early. I think that makes Max a lot less be able to sit on the punches, deliver that volume that he loves to deliver. He's going to put the volume out there, but dude, it's a 5 round fight, and hey, maybe Gaethje comes out, blows his gas tank early, and Max is able to put it on him. But I think Gaethje's gotten better with that. I think we talked about Cody Garbrandt earlier, getting into that brawlers mode, and I think Gaethje used to do that early in his career, but more work with Trevor Whitman, more experience in the octagon. He talks about learning from that Charles fight when he got stunned early and just kind of panicked and started throwing bombs. I think you're going to see him stay composed, pick the leg apart, land hard shots. Like, I think the difference is when Gaethje lands the hard shots, like, it's just like when we were in Atlanta. When Poirier landed, it was a lot different than when Holloway landed. And I just think it's going to be a little bit too much for Max here. And I'm going to go on record. It's going to be sad, but I think we're going to see Max finished for the first time in his career on Saturday night.
Yeah, well, now I don't want to just copy you. I guess I was just waiting to see what you had to say. But I've been doing my best trying to talk myself into picking Holloway here. Can you envision a scenario much like that Poirier fight where he gets hurt early? And again, the guy can take a shot in that fight. Even in Volk 3, he was getting, hit with everything for 5 rounds, did not get dropped, barely gets wobbled. So is there a chance that he could survive some big punches from Gaethje and then put it on strong in the last, in the championship rounds? Again, that's what I've been trying to talk myself into now for weeks. Unfortunately, I just can't see it happen. I mean, Gaethje, but maybe I can't even say Holloway is going to get knocked out. I can't even get it out of my fuck
Yeah,
it. I'm
look,
changing my
I
mind
don't.
again. Holloway pours it on. He gets clipped. He does get dropped for the first time, so we see the chin sort of get cracked. Gets dropped in the first or second. Comes on strong in 3 and 4, and he wins by knockout in the 5th round. Max Holloway by 5th round stoppage, maybe a standing TKO, but that's what I've always thought. I've been saying it since day one, so why switch up now?
I like it.
Moving right along, I'm going to have you intro this next one. Maybe the best female fighter on the
Yeah,
Wild
so
Oscar, one of
we
the most.
got really. I mean, technically, this is the first true championship bout of the night. We do have obviously Gaethje Holloway is for the BMF belt, but we know that's not a legitimate championship in the sport. But We got a
That's
big
getting
one in the
forward.
women's strawweight
I'll ask
division.
you. I'll ask you real quick though about the BMF belt. What are your thoughts on that? I feel like nobody's talking about that. When Gaethje fought Poirier in the summer, it was a major story. No one or people were mad about the belt itself. I don't think you could argue that those two, no one more valuable than those guys or more deserving of that BMF title. So, but a lot more talk about it then, or when it was originally on the line with Masvidal and Nate Diaz. You're not really hearing anything about it now. I think people are more excited that it's a 5-round fight, so they don't really care if it's for a belt or a made-up belt or whatnot. But what do you think of the BMF belt being on the line on Saturday night?
Yeah, I mean, like we obviously know that the BMF belt isn't like an official title. Like we know that there's champions in each division for a reason. But I think it's also cool to see that side of like just entertainment and the exciting and fun fights for the fans. Like, bro, this is like the guys who are fighting for the BMF title, like Jorge, Nate, shout out Nate Diaz, legend. You know what I mean? Just legends of the sport, like guys that fans love to see. Like, you could have headlined this card with Gaethje Holloway, and yeah, don't get me wrong, there would have been some backlash, but also fans would have been like, hell yeah, like
Mm-hmm.
this is a great man. You know what I mean? Like, and I think it's a fight that people are really looking forward to. I like them keeping just throwing out the BMF belt every now and again for a big fun fight like this, and they all pay off. They're all fun, so looking forward to seeing another one. But
Yeah.
leading into it, our first true championship bout of the night, the women's strawweight division, we got Zhang Wei Li, one of the biggest woman stars in the sport, taking on Yan Jianan. I hope I pronounced that correctly, but I'm not sure.
Not even once, dude. Not even close.
But this is gonna be a high level fight. Both women are pretty complete fighters, but there's one side of this fight that I do favor, and that is the champion Zhang Wei Li and her grappling and ground game. I think she's gonna be able to take this fight there anytime she wants, really, and that's why I see her getting the victory in this one. Hebs, how about you?
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, not even going to try to pronounce this name. Whaley smashes her. Whaley is a dominant champion. She's one of the most entertaining women to watch. Um, Again, not maybe telling on myself on episode 1 that I'm a casual, unfortunately, but don't know too much about the other lady. But I don't think it matters. Not sure there's another woman on earth right now that can compete with Whaley Yang. So I think she's going to smash her in round 1. I'll go with hurts her on the feet, takes her down, maybe finishes her with elbows on the ground. But I could see this being another banger of a fight. I just think we're in for a lot of fights like that throughout this card. So I see it being another super exciting fight. But leading us into the main event of the evening, Jamal Hill versus Alex Pereira. They're hyping Jamal Hill, the former champion who never lost his belt. Some would argue he never even really won the belt because he took a vacant title and then never defended it. So I feel like that's a little bit of false advertising the way people are talking about it. But an unbelievable matchup here, one that people have been waiting for since that fight when Jamal Hill took the belt from Glover Teixeira, or Glover didn't have it, but you know what I mean. And then who was waiting in Glover's corner? That made for some great pictures back when that happened. And at that time, obviously Pereira was still the 185-pound king. And now look, about a little under a year and a half later, we see those two in the octagon, back in the octagon against each other. But this time they're facing off. Justin, talk to me. Break it down. What you got?
Look, fellas, the main event of the evening. Alex Pereira taking on Jamal Hill. This fight, you can't get more of an entertaining fight for the casuals out there that aren't too familiar maybe with Jamal Hill. Let me just tell you something. He's a dog. All right. And look, going into this fight, there's a couple things to talk about. Obviously, Alex Pereira can't take away what the guy's done in the sport in just such little time. Two weight division champion. Although he hasn't looked the best at 205, we won't talk about the Jan fight that he probably lost, but the UFC gave him, and then he landed the shot against Yuri, but despite being kind of worked here in the beginning of that fight. Look, in this fight, I see really one thing happening here. I think Alex. We all know Alex is going to keep the fight on the feet. Let's not say keep the fight on the feet. Alex is fighting on the feet. He's not going to pick and choose where this fight takes place.
1-for-1, 100% takedown rate, the highest in the history of the sport. 1-for-1 shot against Izzy, got him down, no problem. He could be shooting for legs in this one. I don't know. Continue. Sorry.
Yeah. So look, that's the thing about Alex is we know he's not going to be shooting for legs against a guy like Jamal Hill, a true 205er, a guy that's people talk about Alex being big. Yes, he's a big guy, but Jamal Hill's a real 205er. I think he's going to show that on Saturday night. I think he can. The thing that people don't talk about as much is Hill's ability to fight both orthodox and southpaw. I think that's going to pay big dividends in this one. I think him being able to fight southpaw is going to not take away, but it's going to slow down Pereira's lower body attack, which is something that is the number one component to his striking game is chopping at the lower body, taking out the legs, and then going to work after that, head hunting. But I think you're going to see Jamal Hill come out in a lot more southpaw. I think you're going to see him not give Alex as much respect as a lot of guys do. I think even when you saw Izzy fight Alex after a couple times, Izzy was still fighting really off the back foot against Alex. And I don't know if he had a choice because Alex was just kind of marching forward with no regard. I think Hill's got that one-touch power that if Alex wants to do his creep forward with the hands down and just exchange, I don't know if that's going to go too well for him in this one. But again, we're talking about a guy who has landed the shot. He's landed the shot in multiple fights. That's why he's a two-weight division champion. And you can't take that away from him. But I think we're going to see a coming out party for the new UFC light heavyweight champion after this one. And I think we're going to see Jamal Hill put the lights out of Alex Pereira inside the first 2 to 3 rounds of this one. And I think we're going to have a pretty big star in the sport, a guy that, an American champ who's could rule this division for quite some time. I mean, we'll see, but I think this is a fight that he's going to shock a lot of people. I know he's the underdog in this one, but I see him getting the job done on Saturday night. How about you, Hebs?
Coming off a torn Achilles, I can't think of a worse thing to do than to fight Alex Pereira. I mean, talk about a injury that you don't want to have coming into a fight with the best kickboxer in the UFC, a guy who obviously everyone knows his history by now, a two-weight division champion in Glory Kickboxing, comes into the UFC, and within a couple years, he's got 2 belts in this promotion. But again, I don't understand how Hill, he put out that video, did you see a couple weeks ago, of him like mocking the leg kicks? If you're going to do something like that, you got to be pretty confident that you got a strategy to stop it. He already said he wasn't going to wrestle. I think the quote was, "I'm going to knock him the fuck out," if I recall correctly. So clearly he's confident in his hands in this fight, and he has every reason to be. He's shown he has knockout power. I think a lot of that has to do more with the speed, especially as you mentioned in that southpaw stance. That lead right hook is nasty, usually a counter right. He can also throw from orthodox, that overhand right, what he got Johnny Walker with. So certainly has a lot of skill in his hands, but in a stand-up fight, how could you possibly pick against Alex Stone Hands Pohatan Pereira? Another fan favorite, another guy, which that part of it kind of scares me. I really do not like the odds for this fight. It seems everyone is on Pereira. A lot of the headlines I mentioned, Hill coming off an injury, saying he's not going to wrestle. A lot of that stuff, would favor Pereira, as well as, probably 80% of the public backing him. So I don't really see how it's a near pick 'em. Didn't you mention it's closer to like minus 130 now for Pereira?
Yeah.
That seems ridiculous to me. Vegas has giant gold buildings for a reason. They're not handing out free money as much as I'd love to think so. But even having said that, I might be a moron, but I am not picking against Alex Pereira in any fight, but especially a fight like this where they're going to stand and trade. I do think Jamal is very underrated. He's championship level material. I know I said earlier he won a vacant belt, but he is that high level of a guy. I think him versus Yuri, him versus Ankalaev, these high level guys are all very good fights. I think he deserves to be there. And I could very well see him win. I mean, this is a toss up. I'm clearly going back and forth, but yeah, I'm not going to pick against Alex Pereira in a stand-up fight. He has gotten hurt before, but he's shown great toughness in those fights. He's shown he has a great chin. Even, he finds the shot, like you said. Yuri had him hurt, was kind of coming on strong, gets clipped. Izzy clearly winning that fight, and it kind of just happens out of nowhere. We've seen the long highlight reel from kickboxing with that left hook, which just sounds like a gunshot. Is getting older, about 36 years of age, I believe. But again, I'm back in Powhatan. I see him knocking him out. I'm going to go maybe, I feel like it's always in this. I'll go second round. I want to say second or third, but
the lack of confidence in your voice just screams a Jamal Hill KO.
Jamal Hill easily going to win. I don't know what I'm talking about. They're not giving out fucking Alex Pereira at minus 130. I don't know how it's going to happen, but it's just going to be one of those fights, I guess. Maybe that.
Side note, I will say I am looking forward to seeing what Hill looks like just on the scales and stuff. He's always had a little gut. I'm not worried about that, but we don't want to see the massive gut that he had pre-injury, when he was just.
He looked lean.
Yeah.
You could always tell in the face cutting weight. He looked lean today on media day in the interviews. But yeah, I don't think there isn't a big advantage, or there isn't a big. You were talking about Hill as a real light heavyweight. If you don't think Alex Pereira is a real light heavyweight, I got news for you. That man is massive. I don't think there's going to be a big advantage in size either way. We've seen that guy walk into the cage while fighting at 185 in the low 220s, or was he was 218, 219, something like that. So, I mean, Jamal Hill is not going to be much bigger than him. There's no chance. So, what are you talking about?
No, I'm not saying that he's going to be much bigger than him, but you're not when I'm talking about a true light heavyweight. I'm not saying that Alex isn't. I'm just saying you can say he weighs this and that. I still believe he's light in the ass. I still think Jamal Hill is stronger than Alex Pereira. I just do. That's my personal opinion. And I think he punches. I even think he punches harder than Alex Pereira. And I'm telling you, I think we'll see it on Saturday night again. Like we said though, this fight, dude, Pereira does have the power. If Pereira lands that clean left hook, Jamal Hill could be looking at the ceiling. That's what makes this fight such a great fight. I can promise you one thing: someone is going out in this fight. This fight is not going the distance. You can you can bet the house on that one. This fight ain't going the distance. Well, I can tell you that.
I mean, the speed advantage, I think you could side with Hill. Pereira has not looked particularly great in any department at 205, but certainly has not looked as fast as he did at 185. Obviously, only 2 fights in, and he's 2 for 2, so you can't knock it too much. But I think and he's getting older as well. Maybe that's playing a factor in it as well. But the jump from 85 to 205 is certainly not a small one. So I don't know. I do think Hill has the speed advantage here. I could kind of see that right hook landing, but I would just feel like an idiot betting against Alex Pereira in a fight that I believe is going to stay standing. So I'm going to say Pereira finishes him. And I honestly, talking about star power in this sport, how many guys are bigger than Alex Pereira right now? I feel like these last, well, I guess for the last year and a half since he became the middleweight champ, but his star kind of just keeps growing. Another guy who does not speak English, but doesn't matter. Every word or sound, big grunter that comes out of his mouth, I'm seeing like all over social. Everyone's like, "God, this guy's cool," with just like him grunting. It's pretty hysterical. But yeah. So from that standpoint, I mean, I don't really understand the knocks on the star. There aren't too many massive stars in this UFC right now. So I think Pereira is one of the bigger names, and he's going to defend that belt on Saturday night.
Hey, well, that's what Saturday night's for. We get to find out about all these fights. Really looking forward to it, man. I'm glad we could get our first podcast in the books, and looking forward to doing many other with you, my brother. Just want to say, give us a look here. We'll have the pages coming out on TikTok, the Ballin and Brawlin podcast. We're gonna have the Instagram rolling. Hopefully, we can get some clips up for you guys before Saturday, and yeah, we're looking forward to doing many more of these. So, salute to the fans,
Absolutely.
Hebs.
Episode 1. That's a wrap. Thanks for listening. As he said, like, comment, and subscribe. Enjoy the fights.
Yes, sir. See you
All
Saturday
right.
night.